It is spring, and you are standing in the garden aisle of the store, and you are doing the thing you do every single year without ever once questioning it. You are buying seeds, little paper packets. $3 here, $4 there, tomatoes, beans, squash, peppers. You fill a basket, you pay your $20 or $30 or $40, and you carry them home feeling like a gardener. And next spring, you will do it again. And the spring after that. And every spring for the rest of your life, you will come back to this same aisle and pay again for the same thing, because that is just how it works. Is it not? No, it is not. And the fact that you believe it is the single most profitable lie in the history of food. Because the plant in your garden makes its own seeds. It does it for free. A single tomato holds dozens of seeds. One bean plant gives you 100 beans, every one of them a seed for next year. One lettuce gone to flower throws thousands of seeds to the wind. Every vegetable you grow is trying, with all its might, to hand you next year's entire garden for nothing. The plant wants to give you the seeds. Nature designed it to give you the seeds. And somehow, you have been convinced to throw those seeds in the compost and drive back to the store and pay for new ones. How? How did they pull that off? In Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and in Holmes County, Ohio, the Old Order Amish have not bought garden seeds in living memory. Some of the families I have sat with are growing tomatoes from a line of seed that has been saved, hand to hand, mother to daughter, for over 100 years. 100 years. The same tomato, growing in the same valley, never once purchased, never patented, never owned by any company. Every Amish home holds a seed bank, alive and growing, worth more than money, and it costs them nothing but the knowing of how to keep it. And that knowing was taken from your family on purpose, so that the plant's free gift could be replaced with a paper packet you must buy forever. I am Levi Miller, and for years I have been sitting at the tables and walking the gardens of Old Order Amish families, writing down the skills we let slip away. And this skill of saving seed, might be the most important of them all, because this is the skill that sits underneath your very food itself. By the end of this video, you will know how to start your own 100-year seed bank this very season from the vegetables you are already growing, so stay with me. Because once you understand the trick that was played on you, you are going to be amazed you ever fell for it, and so was I. Let me take you to a garden. Her name is Barbara Byler, and she is 79 years old. She lives near the village of Gordonville, Pennsylvania, in a farmhouse where the kitchen garden is bigger than most people's whole backyard. When I came to see her, it was late summer, and the garden was a riot of green and red and gold, beans climbing high, tomatoes heavy on the vine, squash sprawling everywhere. But Barbara was not picking the best tomato to eat. She was picking the best tomato to keep. And that, she would tell me, is the whole secret right there. Barbara walked me down the rows, and she did not talk about planting. She talked about choosing. This plant, she said, gave the earliest fruit, so we keep its seed. That one never got the blight when the others did, so we keep its seed. This bean stayed sweet even in the dry spell, so we keep its seed. She was not just saving seeds. She was choosing the best of every kind, every single year, and keeping only those. And then she showed me a tin box, an old tobacco tin, full of paper envelopes, each one labeled in pencil in a careful hand, some of the labels so old the writing had nearly faded away. This tomato, she said, tapping one envelope. My husband's grandmother brought the seed for this when she married into the family. She did the math for me. That seed line was older than any person standing in the garden, older than the tractor on the neighbor's farm, older than the paved road. I asked her how much she spent on seeds each year. She looked at me like I had asked how much she spent on air. Nothing, she said. Why would we buy what the garden gives us? And then she said the thing I have carried with me ever since. She said, "We do not own these seeds. We are only keeping them on their way to our grandchildren. We do not own these seeds. We are only keeping them on their way to our grandchildren." Sit with that. Because that one sentence holds a whole different way of thinking about food and time and what it means to be free, and I am going to come back to it. Now, let me tell you how it actually works and why it works, because once you understand the biology, the trick the companies played on you snaps into focus. Here is the thing you have to understand first. There are two kinds of seeds in this world, and the difference between them is everything. The first kind is called open pollinated, and it includes all the old heirloom varieties. An open pollinated plant breeds true. That means if you save the seed from a good tomato, the seed will grow into the same good tomato next year. Like begets like. The child looks like the parent. This is how all seeds worked for the entire 10,000-year history of farming, right up until about 100 years ago. Every variety of every vegetable that exists was created by ordinary farmers, saving seed from their best plants, year after year, slowly shaping them. Your ancestors were plant breeders, all of them, whether they knew it or not. The second kind of seed is called a hybrid, and here is where the trick begins. A hybrid is made by crossing two different parent lines under controlled conditions to produce a first-generation offspring, which the companies label F1. That hybrid plant often grows vigorous and uniform, and the companies make much of this. But here is what they do not put in large print on the packet. If you save the seed from a hybrid, it will not breed true. The next generation scrambles. It throws back to its grandparents in unpredictable ways. You might get something useless, something weak, something that looks nothing like the plant you saved it from. The hybrid is, by its very design, a dead end. It is a seed that cannot become a seed bank, and that is not an accident. That is the entire point. Do you see it now? Do you see what was done? For 10,000 years, seeds were a gift that renewed itself every season. Then the companies introduced a seed that, on purpose, cannot renew. A seed that forces you to come back and buy again next spring, and every spring forever, because the plant you grew cannot give you a plant like itself. They took the one thing in agriculture that was free and self-renewing, and they engineered it to expire. They did not improve the seed for you, they improved it for themselves. They built a lock onto something that used to be open, and then they sold you the key, 1 year at a time. But that is only half the story. Because you have to ask the question, if saving seed is free and easy, and your great-grandmother did it without a second thought, then why does almost no one do it now? Why is your garden full of hybrid packets instead of a tin box of saved envelopes? Who did this, and how did they make it stick? I will tell you. And this is the villain at his most clever. It began in earnest in the early 20th century, in the 1920s and 30s, when the seed companies first grasped the commercial power of the hybrid. An open pollinated seed was, from a business standpoint, a terrible product. You sold it to a farmer once, and he never needed you again, because his crop made next year's seed for free. But a hybrid you could sell every single year, forever, because the farmer could not save it. The companies poured their effort into hybrids, not always because the food was better, but because the business was better. And they marketed those hybrids as modern, as scientific, as the choice of the progressive grower, while the old heirloom seeds were painted as backward, unreliable, a relic of poorer times. The same word as always. Modern, the same shame as always. And then, in our own lifetimes, it went further than your great-grandmother could ever have imagined. Companies began to patent seeds, to claim ownership of a living thing that makes copies of itself. They developed seeds that were not only hybrid but legally protected, so that saving them was not just difficult but, for the commercial farmer, against the law. There have been farmers taken to court for the ancient act of saving their own seed. Think about that. The most basic natural human act in all of agriculture, the act that built civilization itself, turned into a crime against a corporation. That is how far the lock has been turned. That is the villain. The seed industry, which took the self-renewing gift at the very root of all food, and engineered it, and patented it, and shamed the old free way out of existence, so that the most fundamental thing a family can do, feed itself from seed it owns, became a thing you rent from them, season after season, world without end. But that is only half the story. Stay with me. Because now I am going to show you exactly how to break the lock, how to start saving your own seed this very season, and it is so simple you will wonder how it was ever taken from you. Let me give you the how-to, plainly, the way Barbara walked me through it. The first rule, the rule that makes everything else possible, is this. You must start with open pollinated or heirloom seed, not hybrid. Read the packet. If it says heirloom or open pollinated or simply gives an old variety name, you can save it. If it says F1 or hybrid, you cannot, not reliably. So your very first step this season is to grow even one heirloom variety with the intention of saving it. Just one. That single act begins your seed bank. Now, the easiest seeds to save, the ones Barbara says every beginner should start with, are the ones that do not cross easily and dry right on the plant. Beans and peas are the perfect beginning. You simply let some of the pods stay on the plant past eating until they grow fat and then dry and rattle. You pick them, shell them, let the beans dry a few more days indoors, and that is it. You have next year's crop in your hand. Lettuce is nearly as easy. You let one good plant bolt shoot up its flower stalk and go to seed, and you gather the dry seed from the spent flowers. Tomatoes take one extra step that surprises people. You scoop the seeds and their jelly into a jar with a little water and let it sit and ferment for a few days, which removes the coating that stops them sprouting. Then you rinse them clean and dry them flat. Peppers are simple. Just dry the seeds from a fully ripe pepper. Squash and melons, you rinse and dry the seeds from a mature fruit, though these cross easily, so you keep only one variety of each kind, or keep them well apart. Then comes the keeping, and this is where the 100 years lives. Barbara's rule is 3 words: cool, dark, dry. Moisture is the enemy, heat is the enemy, light is the enemy. She dries her seed thoroughly, folds it into labeled paper envelopes, always labeled with the name and the year in pencil, and stores the envelopes in that tin in the coolest, driest corner of the house. Seed kept cool and dry stays alive for years, and the bank renews itself every season as you grow and save again. The label matters as much as the seed. A seed you cannot name is a seed you cannot trust. Name it, date it, and the knowledge travels with the seed itself. And do not doubt how long a seed will keep, because the numbers will astonish you. A seed is not a dead thing waiting to be planted. It is a living thing, asleep, its tiny heart of life slowed almost to stopping, waiting for the warmth and the water that say it is time. Kept cool and dry, most garden seeds stay alive and willing for years. Beans and tomatoes and peppers, 4, 5, even 7 years and more. Squash and cucumber, longer still. There are seeds recovered from old jars in cool cellars that sprouted after decades. There are famous cases of seeds, kept dry in cold storage, coming to life after far longer than any human lifetime. The scientists who keep the great seed vaults of the world rely on exactly this, that a properly dried and cooled seed can sleep for generations and wake up ready. So when Barbara tucks her envelopes into that tin in the cool, dark corner, she is not hoping. She is standing on biology as old as life itself. The seed wants to live. Your only job is to keep it cool, dark, and dry, and stay out of its way. And here is the choosing, which is the soul of the whole thing, the part Barbara cares about most. Every year you save seed only from your best. The earliest, the healthiest, the tastiest, the plant that shrugged off the disease that took its neighbors. By doing this, year after year, you are not merely keeping a variety. You are slowly, gently breeding a strain of that vegetable that is perfectly suited to your exact garden, your soil, your weather, your pests. After 10 years of saving, your tomatoes are no longer generic tomatoes. They are your tomatoes, adapted to your land in a way no packet from a national company could ever be. That is something money genuinely cannot buy. It can only be grown and kept and handed down. What does all of this cost? Nothing. A few paper envelopes and a tin box. That is the entire equipment list for a seed bank that could feed your family's gardens for 100 years. Against the $20, $30, $40 you spend every spring, forever, the savings compound into real money over a lifetime. But the money is the smallest part of it, as you are about to see. Now there is one piece of the craft I have to give you, because it is the piece that trips up the beginner and makes them think seed saving failed when it did not. It is the matter of crossing. Some plants keep to themselves, and some plants share their pollen freely with their neighbors, and you must know which is which. Beans, peas, tomatoes, peppers, and lettuce are what the old gardeners call self-pollinating, mostly. They tend to set their own seed before the bees ever get involved, which means the seed you save comes back true even if other varieties grow nearby. That is exactly why Barbara starts every beginner with beans. They forgive you. But the others, the squash, the melons, the cucumbers, the corn, those cross eagerly. Plant 2 kinds of squash side by side, save the seed, and next year you may get a confused thing that is neither parent. The old way around this is simple and needs no science at all. You grow only one variety of each crossing kind in a season, or you keep the varieties far apart across the yard separated by other crops. Or, for the careful gardener, you do what Barbara does with her squash. She ties a light cloth bag over a few chosen blossoms before they open, pollinates them by hand with a small brush from a flower of the same variety, and marks those fruits with a bit of yarn. Those marked fruits, she knows for certain, are pure. It sounds fussy when I say it, but her hands do it in a few minutes, the way yours might tie a shoe. And there is one more practice, the one the old gardeners prized above all, and it has a name: roguing. It means walking your rows and pulling out the bad ones before they can ever make seed. The runt, the sickly one, the plant that bolted too early or grew bitter or caught the blight first. You do not save from those. You do not even let them flower near the ones you will save. You pull them. By removing the worst before they pass on their nature and keeping seed only from the best, you push the whole line a little higher every single year. This is the part the seed catalogs can never sell you, because it is not a product, it is a practice. It is judgment, exercised season after season, and it is precisely how every great heirloom in the world was made, by ordinary people pulling the bad and keeping the good, 10,000 years deep. When you rogue your rows and save your best, you join that unbroken chain of hands. You become, whether you ever use the word or not, a plant breeder, the same as your ancestors were. But that is only half the story. Because there is one more layer, the deepest one, the part almost nobody knows, even among gardeners who have started saving seed. This is the secret within the secret. I asked Barbara whether her 100-year-old tomatoes were really any better than the new hybrids from the catalog, or whether it was just sentiment, just attachment to the old ways, and she did not argue with me. She did something better. She took me to 2 rows in her garden. In one row grew her family's old saved tomato, the 100-year one. In the other, a modern hybrid she had planted just to show a visitor the year before and let go to compare, and she told me what had happened that summer. A blight had come through the valley, a wet summer disease that struck every garden for miles. The hybrid row, she said, had been hit hard, sickened, struggled. But her old saved line barely noticed it. Why? Because for 100 years, in that exact valley, with that exact weather, her family had saved seed only from the plants that resisted whatever sickness came through. 100 years of choosing the survivors had bred a tomato that was, quite simply, native to her land and its troubles in a way no factory seed could ever be. The hybrid was bred in a distant field for a distant average. Her tomato was bred for that valley, by that valley, over a century. That is a kind of fitness that cannot be manufactured. It can only be accumulated, one good choice at a time, across generations. That is the secret within the secret. A saved seed is not just free. It is alive, and it is learning, and it gets better every single year you keep it, growing more perfectly suited to your home with each generation. The hybrid is frozen, the same everywhere, adapted to nowhere. The saved seed is yours, and it becomes more yours every year. You are not just saving money. You are growing a living heirloom that knows your land. Now let me zoom out, because this was never really about seeds. When you save that first handful of beans, and you plant them the next spring, and they come up strong and true, something happens in you that is hard to put into words. You have stepped out of the line at the store. You have stepped out of the cycle of buying the same thing forever. You are holding, in a paper envelope, a thing that renews itself, a small engine of life that asks nothing of any company and answers to no patent. You have, in the most literal way possible, taken back the root of your own food. And you understand, standing there, that this was always possible, that it was always meant to be this way, and that it was taken from you so quietly that you never even noticed it was gone. They took the seed from us. They took the oldest freedom there is, the freedom to feed yourself from your own hands next year and the year after, and they replaced it with a packet and a patent and a yearly bill. They made the gift into a rental. And the saddest part is that most folks have never once questioned it, never once realized that the tomato in their garden is trying every summer to hand them next year for free. We do not own these seeds. We are only keeping them on their way to our grandchildren. Imagine raising children with that in your bones. Imagine the strength of a family that has fed itself from the same living line for 100 years. They tried to take that from all of us, and you can take it back. This season, with one heirloom plant and a paper envelope. So here is what I want from you. In the comments below, tell me one thing. Is there a vegetable, a fruit, a flower that your grandparents grew that you have never been able to find again? A particular tomato, a bean, an apple, something that tasted like your childhood and then simply vanished from the world? Tell me what it was and where they grew it. Because here is a thing that gives me hope. Sometimes, in the comments of these very videos, someone reading recognizes that lost variety and still has the seed, and a thing thought gone forever finds its way home. Stranger things have happened right here, so tell me what you lost. You never know who is reading. And if this stirred something in you, if you felt that pull toward a life rooted a little deeper in your own ground, then I would be honored to have you subscribe, not to smash a button. I do not care about buttons. To join something, there is a quiet movement of folks out here keeping the old seeds and the old skills alive on purpose because we have decided we will not rent our own food from anyone. We do not make noise about it. We just save our best seed every fall and hand it forward. If that is you, you belong here, and I am glad to have you. Next time, I am going to show you something that sounds impossible until you understand it. I am going to show you how the Amish predict the weather a full week ahead, accurately, with no forecast, no phone, no radio, reading signs in the sky and the animals and the plants that we walked right past and forgot how to see. The weather, it turns out, tells you what it is going to do, if you only know the language. That is the next video, and you do not want to miss it. But before you go, stay with me one more minute, because I owe you answers to the doubts I know are rising. I got a letter last month from a woman named Lydia in Shipshewana, Indiana. She wrote that she had gardened for 30 years and bought seed every single spring without once thinking about it, until she watched one of my videos. That fall, she saved seed from her best heirloom beans and tomatoes just to try. She wrote that this spring they came up perfect, that she did not spend $1 on seed for the first time in her adult life, and that she felt, in her own words, like she had been let in on a secret that should never have been a secret at all. She has started a tin box. Her grandchildren, she wrote, will inherit it. And I got a letter from a man named Samuel near Arthur, Illinois. Samuel is 82, and he wrote that his father's sweet corn, a variety the family had saved for generations, had been lost when Samuel went off to work in town as a young man and the savings stopped. For 60 years he mourned that corn, certain it was gone from the earth. Then a cousin, cleaning out an old farmhouse, found a jar of his father's seed in a cool cellar, still viable after all those decades. Samuel planted it. He wrote that biting into that first ear of corn 60 years later was like hearing his father's voice again. Cool, dark, dry, he wrote. It keeps longer than you would ever believe. It kept long enough to bring my father back. I have read that letter many times. Now, let me answer the objections plainly. You might be thinking, is saved seed not riskier, less reliable than the fresh packet? It is the opposite. As long as you start with open pollinated seed and keep it cool and dry, your saved seed is adapted to your garden, which makes it more reliable there, not less. The unreliability they warned you about was always about hybrids, which you were never meant to save in the first place. Start with heirlooms and the risk disappears. You might be thinking, this sounds like a lot of knowledge to learn. Start with beans, just beans. Let some pods dry on the plant and pick them. That is the entire skill for your first year. You already know enough to begin right now. Master beans, and add one new vegetable each year, and in a few seasons you will hold the whole skill without ever having strained for it. You might be thinking, I only have a small garden, or just some pots on a balcony. Then save from what you have. A single heirloom tomato plant in a pot will give you more seed than you can use in a decade. Seed saving does not require acres. It requires one plant and the decision to keep its children. And you might be thinking, the hybrids really do grow better. I have seen it. Sometimes in their first year, in ideal conditions, they do look impressive, and that is exactly what they were designed to do, to win the first year so you come back. But they cannot give you a second year. The heirloom gives you a second year and 100th year. Vigor you must rebuy every spring is not strength, it is a leash. The real strength is the seed that comes back on its own. Ask yourself a simple question. If the power went out, if the trucks stopped, if the store shelves went bare for a season, whose garden rises again next spring? The one who must drive to town and buy a packet, or the one who holds next year's whole garden in a tin box on the shelf? That question answers itself, and it is the oldest security there is. Barbara said something to me as I left her garden, the late summer light golden on the drying bean pods. She said, "A family that keeps its own seed is never truly poor and never truly afraid, because no matter what comes, the garden will rise again next spring from their own hands." And then she said it one last time, the way she folded it into everything. "We do not own these seeds. We are only keeping them on their way to our grandchildren. Keep the seed, take it back. I will see you in the next one."